Hey everyone, thank you so much for pressing play. So today I wanted to answer a question. Someone commented on a recent video that I did and it says, may you discuss budget tips while living on one income? And so I thought about a friend of mine who actually has a blog. His blog is called Led by the Book, and he recently did a course at my church called Practical Ways to Budget, and he gives us an example on a couple who was living on one income. It was extremely encouraging to me, and so I pray that it blesses you too. I'm back with my friend John. Can you explain what Led by the Book is?
Yeah, so Led by the Book it's a blog to help Christians lead according to the Bible in the workplace and how to shine every day in the workplace. So we cover topics from leadership to time management to performance management and all this, but all based on the Bible.
So today, what are you going to be sharing with us?
So today, the three tips specifically that I want to share with people and things that I have learned. My wife and I, we've been living on a one income now for 5 years, and just what has helped us. The first is that both spouses have to be on the same page if you're going to live on one income, because if one spouse likes to spend out of control and the other one's trying to rein in the expenses, it's never going to work. So both have to be on the same page about how to spend money. The second thing that helps, that is very important, is you have to have a goal when you are living on one income, because obviously the money that you have is finite. You cannot get everything that you want with that amount of money. So you have to be able to prioritize and spend your money on what's most important. And on a practical level, which is the third step in how that works, is you have to have a budget. The budget helps you to know how to allocate your expenses based on what's most important to you in the moment. So you set your goal, you get the discipline, and then the budget helps you to now allocate those resources every month to help you meet your goals and to achieve them. One example for us is one goal that we had was to buy a house. And so when we first got married, we were putting money aside every month towards that house. And so having that goal was what helped us to really stay focused, because otherwise if you don't have a goal, then you're never going to make any progress.
Awesome. So today you're going to share an example of a couple, right?
Yeah, so I'll share an example of a couple. I'll walk you through just a budget in general, how it's laid out, and help you understand just how money works just in general, and also give you an example of how to actually put a budget together and some of the things that you have to look out for when you do it, just so you can make sure you are staying in line with your budget. All right, everyone. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to walk you through some of the tips that I talked about. If you remember, the first one is making sure that both spouses are on the same page. Secondly is that you have to have a goal in mind with the one income. And last but not least, having a budget. Now, Brigitte had mentioned that the question came from someone who's actually going to be staying home while their husband works. And so I want to walk you through some of the things to keep in mind with that. The first thing you have to understand is that the money that's coming in, you have to be able to allocate it and make choices with it, because obviously we cannot get everything we want with the money that's coming in every month. So that means you're going to have to make some choices of where your money is going to go. And this is where the goal is going to come into play. The second thing to keep in mind, when you get a paycheck at the beginning of the month, the first thing that you see, or the first number that you see at the top of your paycheck, is your gross income. Now, your gross income is not what's going to come into your bank account if you have direct deposit. Your gross income is what comes in, and then from that gross income, there's some things that are taken out. All of us know, for example, taxes have to come out of the gross income. Okay, taxes, the government has to get their cut of the pie. The second thing is, depending on what company you work for, if they have a 401k, your 401k usually comes out even before taxes are taken out. And again, depending on the company that you work for, your medical premium is usually taken out at that time as well. So you have taxes, you have your 401k, you have your medical premium, all taken out of your paycheck before the money comes in. Now, the amount that actually comes to you at the end of the paycheck here is what's called your net income. Okay? Your net income is usually somewhere between 10 to 18% lower than your gross margin once all of these taxes and things are taken out. Now, your net income is what you are going to use, as I said over here, to make certain choices to how are you going to use this net income, how are you going to use this money to accomplish all of the goals that you and your family are setting for yourself. The one thing that a lot of people miss is you have to live beneath the amount of money that you make. If you're making $10,000 a month, you have to spend less than $10,000 a month. If you're making $5,000 a month, you have to spend less than $5,000 a month. That's how the money is going to last you longer. Otherwise, if you're spending more than that, you're going to have to borrow money, get into debt, which is never a good thing, because once you hit into hard times, that debt begins to pile up and you can find yourself in a lot of trouble. To help explain this, I'm going to give you an example, which is what I gave when I gave this presentation. Let's take, for example, a family that's making $45,000 a year, okay? So we're going to call this family the bread family. They're making $45,000 a year. The husband is working, the wife is home, they have one income. And as I mentioned on the previous page, the $45,000 a year, that comes out to every pay period, every 2 weeks, the bread family, the husband, is taking home $1,423. This is once the taxes are taken out, the 401k, the medical expenses or the medical premium are taken out. So he's taking home $1,423 every pay period. So that means on a monthly basis, if you just multiply this by 2, that comes out to $2,846 per month, okay? Now this amount of money here, he needs to allocate on his expenses. There's 2 ways to allocate this amount of money. The first one, you have to look at what are my fixed expenses. Your fixed expenses are things that don't change from month to month. These include things such as rent, utility bills, depending on how you use your energy bill or your energy resources. Your utility bill can stay flexible or it can stay fixed from month to month. Another thing is your insurance, your car insurance. That's usually a fixed monthly payment. And I always put on here tithing as well, because sometimes it's good just to give a fixed amount depending on what the Lord has put on your heart to give. You want to give that at the top as well. And so if you can think of any other fixed expenses that are not going to change, you can include them here on this list. Once you have covered your fixed expenses, the amount of money that's left over from there is going to go now to what's called your variable expenses. Okay. Your variable expenses, those are things that may vary month to month, not by a lot, but it's not a fixed amount every month. Some can argue that utilities could be both in the fixed or the variable. Again, depending on how you use your energy, it can go in both categories. Some variable expenses could be things such as clothing. If you're buying shoes for your kids, if you have young kids, they grow pretty quickly. So from month to month, your expenses are going to vary in that category. Other expenses could include things such as groceries. You may see some variation in there as well. And so you want to break down your category of expenses into these 2 buckets. I can tell you right now, your fixed expenses are always going to be a lot fewer than your variable expenses. These things to be things that you absolutely cannot live without, while these can be things that you can forego from month to month, again, depending on what your needs or your preferences are that month. Going back to the example here of the bread family, so car insurance, which is a fixed expense, okay, and they're spending $100 towards that. So that's how much they're allocating per month towards car insurance. And then groceries, they're gonna be deciding to allocate $220. Now remember, I said groceries is a variable expense for some, but here for the bread family, they're looking at it as a fixed expense because they're putting that fixed amount. So if the price of groceries goes up in one particular month, they're allocating still the same amount. And what they're deciding to do, which could be a great tip as well, if you allocate $220 for groceries, but you only spend $200 that month, then the extra $20, you can just roll it over to the next month's budget, and that can add a supplemental amount towards the next month's budget for you. So there's multiple ways to do it. And then for rent, they're spending $1,400 a month for rent. And then tithing, okay, they're giving $284. which is 10% of their income. So these are some of their fixed expenses, and then from there they're allocating things to automobile expense. And automobile expense, that's gonna be a variable expense because again, you have your gas expenses, but then if you have any repairs that has to be done that particular month, that's gonna cause some variation in your spending. So for the Bread family here, they're allocating $230 towards automobile, and then they're allocating some funds towards household expenses, and for them, they're allocating $20 towards household expenses per month, and then so on and so forth. Once you have allocated funds towards your fixed and your variable expenses, you also want to have what's called an emergency account and a savings account. Notice these two are separate. What is your emergency account? Your emergency account is an account that is going to hold 3 to 6 months of your overall monthly expenses. So if you are hit on hard times or you lose your job, that's going to help cover up to 3 to 6 months of expenses for you while you get back on your feet, okay? And then your savings, that's going to hold money towards those goals that you are setting for yourself. And the other thing that you want to make sure you absolutely budget for is vacation. You never want to put vacation on a credit card because again, it can get out of control and you can find yourself in a lot of trouble with the credit card companies. So just put, even if it's $50, $75 a month, you want to put that away, and you'd be surprised at the end of the year you can have close to $2,000 just in the vacation account to go and take a nice vacation with your family. This is the general idea behind budgeting, but just to recap, you want to make sure you have your fixed expenses covered first, and then you put money towards your variable expenses, keeping in mind your emergency account, your savings account, and then also you also want to make sure you have some money aside for vacation. That's going to help to energize you as you work towards your goal. So these are some of the tips that have helped me personally. My wife and I, we've been doing this for 5 years now, and it absolutely does work. So if this is your first time going on a budget, don't get discouraged. It's going to be difficult at first, but you'll find that as you start to get the hang of it, it actually becomes very exciting as you see that you are starting to reach your goals. So I hope this has been helpful for you, and Brigitte will have some of these things in the show notes. Hopefully you can find them helpful and share it with others as well.
So before I close this video out, I wanted to share this spreadsheet that John shared with our church when he did this presentation. So this page right here basically just explains who the Bread family is, and he named the husband Jason and the wife Sandra. Every pay period they make $14.23, which for the month equals $2,846. And so he just explains a little bit of who they are here. And then on the next page is the actual spreadsheet. And so the first column is the budget they've allocated to each area. The second is what they actually spent that month. And the third, the last column, is what's left over. Because like he mentioned earlier, for the variable expenses, their expenses might change from month to month. And so even for, like, for example, entertainment, they put $50 for entertainment, and maybe for that month it just so happens that they were extremely busy and they didn't use all of that $50. So whatever's left over, they could roll it over to the next month, like John was explaining, you know, or maybe they could even put that whatever's left over into savings, or however they choose to use whatever's left over. But this spreadsheet, just looking at it helps me because I'm a visual learner, and so I hope that this helps someone else who's never seen a budget spreadsheet. The whole 2,846 has been put into different areas. So yeah, this was really helpful for me. It blessed me, and so I hope that this video blesses someone else too. Thank you for watching.